Hey, Rock Your Purpose. Taylor Chastain here. I'm a Ruby ambassador, and I am going to be going over chapter 17 and 18, the laws of priority and the laws of sacrifice. So first and foremost, thank you to Erin for switching me weeks. I was supposed to actually lead week 8, and neither of us could have predicted what I'd be experiencing right now with my sister in the hospital. But God knew I needed to be present and present on these 2 chapters. Just one more example of how our leadership is truly selfless. Like it's bigger than ourselves. And sometimes that means saying yes to God and not knowing what you're saying yes to, but just that, it could bless so many people and He will use that however it will benefit us, really. I mean, oh my gosh, all the feelings as I was reading these chapters, you guys. So all of the time, leadership is putting others first. And that's what these 2 chapters are truly about is, chapter 17 is where I'm going to start first. And that's the law of priorities. And the quote that stood out to me was, a leader is the one who climbs the tallest tree, surveys the situation and yells, "Wrong jungle." How many times have you guys done that? Like in life, in your family, in your education, in your career, in this business. I can think of so many examples of where I was like, I thought I was making the best decision and I was reading the map wrong, or God was like, pivot, you need to move. And, there have been so many examples of that, especially this year. And I'm not going to give specific political examples, but there have been a couple of examples where God is using situations like this in my life and saying, no, this is the wrong way, turn around, go the other way. And I have so many examples of that in this business too, whereas you guys might as well, where you think that you're doing the right thing or you're leading the right way, and God just says, turn around, or you hear something or you see something isn't right in your business and you need to flip the script, right? We need to adjust. We need to pivot. We hear that all the time in a lot of our training videos, especially by Christina Williams and Brittany Howard, is pivot. So an example of this that I wanted to give of literally reading the map wrong was when we were coming back home from Michigan to Idaho, and we were
No.
Not muted here. We had stopped in South Dakota. We were going to just drive to Wyoming, and we were going to stop right at Yellowstone. And sorry, guys, here. Okay, we were going to stop right at Yellowstone and then drive through the next day. So we could see all the views. I've never been there. I was like, let's do this. Well, we got there and I was so exhausted, you guys. I'm like, no, you know what? Let's just go right through. Well, our navigation had stopped working. I should say, let me correct this. We didn't set our navigation past Yellowstone before we got to Yellowstone. So we entered Yellowstone, lost service, and we were reading the map wrong. I have navigation in my van and I was like, I don't know how to read this. So we were literally reading it wrong. We took a wrong turn, which led us down a 1-lane gravel road, 25 miles per hour with water on the sides. Like it just said, beware, open body of water. We're like, what in the world? But you guys, God still used that, oh my gosh, it was that drive home that, yes, it was pitch black out. But it was that drive home that God used to create conversation between Adam and I and just delve deeper into our marriage. And that wrong turn blessed us so greatly. Imagine taking a wrong turn in your business that blesses you and your team so greatly because you realize the way to elevate your leadership, the way to turn your team around, the way to admit failure and show them it's okay to fail and it's okay to move forward and it's okay to go onward and upward, right? So those were just a couple of examples, and so some key points. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. especially in this business, but in life, you know, that's where we have the most growth, is outside of our comfort zone. And so it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to be scared, but don't let that fear paralyze you. That paralysis analysis, right? So 80% of your time with the top 20% of your people. Another example of this, I actually had asked my husband, he's in the military, he's a tech sergeant in the military, so a non-commissioned officer. And I said, hey, question for you. Do you, you know, if the law of priorities is you spend the 80% of your time with the top 20% of your leaders, do you do that at work? Do you do that in the military? And he was like, absolutely. And he gave me, oh no, Matt's shaking his head no. So he gave me an example, and he said, he's got 43 kids, as he'll call them. So he's got 43, 45 kids. And he just spent 2 hours with a senior airman, which is like the, I don't know, second rank. So, you know, fresh out of tech school, he spent 2 hours with this guy to see if it was a mindset issue, if it was a, you know, what kind of issue was holding him back. And what he learned was, in that 2 hours, he said this guy didn't want to grow. He didn't have the mindset to grow, but more importantly, because he had that negative mindset, I wasn't going to waste my time with him and trying to develop someone that doesn't want to be developed. And I was just like, whoa. Like, how many times have we hit that wall where we come into contact, you know, we get builders, we're excited, and next thing you know, we're like, wait, they just hit senior silver, where are they? And they didn't truly want to build. And so are you going to spend your time with them? No, you're going to run with your runners. You're going to spend that 80% of your time with your top 20% that are bearing the fruit. And asking yourself, what is required of me? What's going to give me the greatest return? What's going to give me the greatest reward? And, you know, it was January of this year where I was asked a hard question. I mean, it wasn't hard at the time. It was pretty easy to fill out. What are my top 3 priorities? This came from the infamous Matt Osborne there. What are my top 3 priorities? And I wrote down my marriage and family, my business, and God, and fulfilling his will, right? So I wrote those down, but then I had to take a hard look and say, oh my gosh, if this is a priority, what am I doing to grow that? How am I investing in that? If it's truly a priority, am I reading parenting books? Am I reading marriage books? Am I going to counseling with my husband? Am I being a submissive wife and letting him be the spiritual leader of the household? Am I truly doing my IPA, or am I doing everyone else's IPA and just focus on building everyone else up, right? So these are the hard questions that you have to ask yourself. What is required of me? What is going to give me the greatest return? And what gives me that greatest reward? Another example of this is Adam took a 4-year special duty assignment. My husband took a 4-year special duty assignment in Vegas. He thought this was going to give him a step up in his career. He wasn't truly aware of the sacrifice that was going to have to be made, which leads us to the next chapter. He wasn't truly aware of the sacrifice it was going to take, but he jumped in, and come to find out the sacrifice really wasn't worth the gain. It was 16 to 18 hours a day that he was away from home. We had my first baby, and then I was pregnant with the second baby and had her there. I was working from home, and then I started this Plexus business. We had 0 time together. And so neither of our cups were getting filled. And he was working a job that wasn't giving him any kind of satisfaction or fulfillment. So inevitably there are going to be times where you accept a position or you take something on. And John Maxwell has tons of examples of this in his book. And you find out that the reward or the return on your investment isn't so great. And that's when you need to adjust your path And that's where we go into the laws of sacrifice. So chapter 18 here. This is from the book. And again, I had to just share this, so it's on the recording. But many people today want to climb the corporate ladder because they believe that freedom, power, wealth are the prizes waiting at the top. But the reality is that leadership requires sacrifice. A leader must give up to go up. This is the heart of a good leader. So some key points that really, that he highlighted here, so it's on the recording, is 1, no success without sacrifice. 2, leaders are often asked to give up more. 3, you must keep giving up to stay up. 4, the higher the level of leadership, the greater the sacrifice. First of all, whoa. So before this book club, Lauren actually sent me a message and she's like, hey girl, I know you're having a really hard time right now. You've got a lot on your plate. Do you still want to lead book club? I had not read the chapters yet, but I still said, absolutely. I need to do this. I need to show up for my team. I need to be present. I need to reclaim the last month of the year as mine. Like, I need to do this. Again, priorities, right? Everyone else taking bits and pieces of our time, but what is a priority to you? Well, this is a priority to me. And it's so important to me that I'm helping my people succeed. So what are you willing to give up to go up? What are your non-negotiables? This is why we need to know our why. Because if you don't have a why that is driving you forward, if you, it could be so easy for me right now to just say emotional overload, right? It could be so easy for me to say, I really don't feel like doing my IPA. I really don't feel like jumping on book club right now. But, when you get to a point in your business, if you don't give anything up, if you're not willing to sacrifice anything, you're going to get stuck again. And let me tell you, after being stuck at gold for a year, I am not willing to get stuck again. So you have to know your why. You have to be willing to answer those hard questions for yourself and make it known to your family as well. What am I willing to give up? What are the non-negotiables? A non-negotiable in this house is that Thursday nights and Monday nights are for Plexus. Every 30th and 31st for Plexus. I don't care. Date night is not important the last weekend of the month right there because that is the biggest weekend of the month every single month in Plexus, right? Those last minute people. And so those are just a couple examples of non-negotiables for me. So if you don't know what you're working towards, if you don't know what you're willing to sacrifice or not sacrifice, if you don't have a clear vision, you're blindly leading your team and you're not doing anyone any good. I know I'm kind of saying some hard things right now, but that destination disease, this was also mentioned, and I'm like, that is accurate. How many emeralds, how many sapphires, how many diamonds have we seen stop their business? They've given up because they feel like they've arrived and they stop putting in the work. I have seen almost emeralds quit this year that I looked up to. I have seen diamonds fall back to emerald. I get chills just saying this because it's true. Like this is a real thing that, you can have a goal, but what happens when you reach that goal? Are you going to make a new one? Are you going to keep going? What are you willing to sacrifice over there? So again, knowing your why, right? And I just, let me just pull this up on my phone here. There was an example that my military friend just posted today. And I read that right before this book club and I thought, oh my gosh, I have to share this. Because how true is it when we're talking about sacrifice, and gratitude goes right along with sacrifice, right? So she says that ultimately she was chatting with a dear friend today who are both going through their own hardships. They're leaning on each other and they wish they had more time in person with each other before the military sent them their separate ways. And this is, quote, "It was in that moment I realized that the military presents us with challenges as well as many gifts. We often spend so much time fighting our way through challenges and dealing with the often overwhelming stressors that we lose sight of the gifts. I have been blessed with many gifts and to develop so many great relationships through the time in the military. Ones that I cherish and will last a lifetime. I ask that you all take pause and see the gifts if they're half a world away. And I stopped and I thought, oh my goodness, how many times do we make these sacrifices, but we don't find gratitude with where we're at? We don't stop to find gratitude with where we're going. We just look and say, oh man, I have to spend another like family function away from my family, or I have to do this, or I have to do that. But if we just change our mindset to say, I get to do this, and I can, speaking from experience, right? And I know Matt and Rochelle know this, Nicole knows this, the time that you spend in the military, even if you are not the one serving and you are the one at home, just making sure that things run properly, it is all a sacrifice. I don't have the blessing of being close to family to have them watch our kids, for me to do this, for me to do that. Adam's getting ready to go on a 6-month deployment and another month or 2 of training. And so that's where priorities and sacrifice are going to come in. And I'm going to have to make some hard decisions. Is this, what do I need to give up? That for me this year, that was putting my kids in a preschool to say, okay, I need to open up some more time. What kind of return am I going to get on that investment? Well, I get 3 extra hours 5 days a week to work on Plexus or to work on chores, and to make that, to carve out my priorities and make my list of sacrifices. So anyway, I just wanted to, leave you guys with that I read from my dear friend today, and just thought, what a great message to take in and recognize the power of gratitude, especially when you're making sacrifices and when you're carving out your priorities. If you do it with a grateful heart, I think that you'll see a whole lot of positive impact that makes in your business and in your team, right? Because negativity can spread like wildfire, but positivity can too. And so, just making sure that you are a positive influence on your team and that you're constantly propelling them forward. And again, leadership is selfless. It's bigger than ourselves. And really it's about everyone except for us, right? It's about everyone below us and to the sides of us. So anyway, I'm going to pass this a lot off to Matt as I'm losing my voice here. So Matt, take over the recap.
Taylor, you did totally awesome. I was laughing because you hit on so many of my notes that I was going to talk about tonight, and I love it. No, that's a great thing. That means I did my job as a coach, because that means you took it and applied it, and it meant something to you. When we talk about the laws of priority and the laws of sacrifice, so I'm going to give you an analogy here in a little bit that gives you a visual picture of why those two are what I consider 4 foundational kind of perimeters around defending your success, your vision, your dreams. But before I do that, I will share with you that this priorities and sacrifice are 2 of the biggest frustration points that I have to coach anybody on, whether it's 20 years in the military or post-military organizations, or my own family, or myself sometimes. It is 2 of the biggest self-growth, self-identifying frustration points for leaders, because we don't often take time to step back and to assess our priorities. And we need to remember that, priorities are not stagnant. We don't just get to define them, lock them in concrete, and walk away. They're ever evolving. They're constantly being influenced and pulled on by several different factors in our lives on any given day. And so, when we talk about staying true to your priorities, there's a lot of methodologies out there. You're going to hear people say, hey, I do this method, that method. I use the Eisenhower table. I do all these different things to prioritize and stay focused on whatever my goals are. A long time ago, I tried to simplify that down into 3 key words: do, delegate, and defer. And so when I coach, I teach this method. Some of you who have coached with me may have heard me, say this to you before, especially if prioritization was one of those areas you were having trouble with. When especially if you've never done leadership to this degree, or you've never owned or had your own team, you know, prioritization it's an art, and it's something that's perfected over time. You know, the first thing you have to do with this is you have to identify those things that you and only you can do. So in a given set, like here's my goal, here's my visions, here's my vision, you know, which is aligned to your why. Here are the goals to get me to that vision. If you don't do those things first, getting to the prioritization piece is like muddy water. You're not going to understand it clearly enough to really define priorities. But once you do, you have to identify those things that only you can do. You are the leader. You as the leader of your team have certain responsibilities. You can't delegate those to anybody else. They're yours. You own them. Or maybe it's just something that you're so good at, you know, you need to do that. You don't need to delegate that to somebody else. So, you know, you have to identify the things that you must do that nobody else can or should, because you are the leader of your team. Now, once you do those things, that becomes your priority. Now, that doesn't mean that there are other things that don't need to happen on your team, but this is the beautiful thing. Your priority should be aligned to your strength area as well. The things that you're good at. We spend far too much time focusing, and you know, there's different psychology, there's different methods out there that say personal growth is all about focusing on your weaknesses. And while that's true to some degree, we spend far too much time in our areas of weakness and looking at what we're not good at, and far too little time focusing on what we're great at. And that's key, because if you spend a lot of time focusing on what you're not good at, it becomes a cognitive distortion, and it affects the way you're wired, and you start to see yourself as less than you really are. So you got to flip the script, if you will, on that one. Instead, spend time in your strength areas. Focus your priorities in the areas that you're good at. And then you delegate those other things that need to happen in a given day or a given week or along the path to a certain goal. You delegate some of those things to people on your team. Guess what? You have a team. And if you've done it right, we've talked about this before, you've assembled and amassed a great team with a lot of knowledge, skills, and abilities that are not just aligned to your own. They bring different talents to the team. And so you look to those folks and you say, hey, I'd like to delegate this to you to run with developing the graphic for our book club, or, you know, helping you put together this script that you're really good at recruiting. You're doing things that are amazing on your team. I would love for you to take some time to write out a couple of scripts that have really worked well for you. You know, delegate those things out. Don't be afraid to delegate. A lot of leaders look at delegating as a sign of weakness, or that it somehow foreshadows an inability of their own. And that's not a good philosophy. Things that are outside your strength zone and things that can help others grow, you should delegate to them. Don't be afraid to do that. And then finally, once you've identified the things that only you can do, you've identified the things that need to be done but should be delegated, because they're not the best use. Like Taylor said, that, you know, 80% of your time on 20% of your people in the military leadership philosophy. Sometimes it's Pareto's principle, 80% of your time on 20% of the tasks. What 20% of the tasks you have to do today really needs your 80% of the time? And what can you delegate to others? Well, finally, there's this chunk that, guess what? We spend time focusing on those things that we just needed to defer or get rid of altogether, dismiss, you know, if you want to keep in the D's, dismiss it altogether. Those are things that I like to refer to as distractions and obstacles, things that our minds will sometimes fixate on because it doesn't want to deal with this uncomfortable thing that we have to do. So that distraction is a self-imposed distraction. You know, oh, look at that pile of laundry. Forget the fact that it's been sitting there for the last 6 weeks, but today it has to get done, right? Because today's the distraction day, right? So we have to be able to say, that's not a priority, that's a distraction. And I need to defer that. If it's sat there for 6 weeks and it's the end of the month and it's push time and my team needs me to be available to them, it can sit there for one more. Okay. All right. So prioritization is work, but it is critical to success. It is constant and it's ever evolving, like I said. So as leaders, we have to embrace this concept of prioritization. We have to. If you don't, either you manage your day or your day will manage you. You manage your tasks or your tasks will manage you. It only works in one of those two ways, unfortunately. And it's every day. You know, we used to say, pick yourself up by your bootstraps in the military. Every day we have to pick ourselves back up every day, reprioritize the day, and get after it. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself at the end of the day going, why didn't I get the things done I needed to get done today? So that's prioritization. Sacrifice. Okay. Taylor, great job on sacrifice. I mean, that's a hard one. I think a lot of times we as leaders, we have a selfless heart, and we automatically assume this concept of sacrificing is well understood and well known. But very few people truly take time up front. We're good at saying this is my why, but we're not very good at doing this. And Taylor, I challenged you with this, and I challenge all my coaching clients with this, is you have to be willing to count the cost up front. Be the honest broker with yourself. You can have the biggest why in the world, but what actually undercuts your ability to achieve that why is you didn't count the cost of what it was going to take to achieve the why. And then once you count the cost, are you willing to pay it day in and day out until you get to your why? And that's key. Everything worthwhile is going to cost you something. If you don't take time to define that up front, how do you know that you're not overpaying? How do you know you're not underpaying? You don't, because you didn't define up front what that was going to cost you in the first place. The greater the goal, the greater the sacrifice. Bottom line up front. If you walk in here today at the start of your business and you said, I'm going to be a diamond in a year, that's a great goal. That's going to cost you to get to that goal. Doesn't mean you can't do it. Doesn't mean the cost isn't worth it. Only you can determine for yourself if the cost is worth what you're trying to achieve as far as your vision, your why, your goals, the things that you set out to undertake. Nobody else can do that for you. I have people who will look at me all the time as a coach and say, tell me what to do. Tell me what I need to give up. And that's easy. The leader side of me wants to tell them, hey, this is easy. This is what you need to do. But the reality is that only you, each one of you looking back at me today, can do that for yourselves, right? Don't let anybody else count the cost for you, because you're going to come up short every time. They're either going to overpay for you on your behalf. Are you going to give them the blank check to overpay for you? I wouldn't. Or they're going to underpay, and you're still going to come up short, and you're not going to hit your goal. All right, real quick, because I know I got to hurry up here. I talk a lot. All right, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to put a visual. There's 4 key chapters in this book that set what I like to call your boundaries, right? As a leader, as a human being, you need to establish healthy boundaries that protect your dreams, that protect your goals, that protect whatever you have defined as success in your life, right? And I want you to think about it from the analogy of a house. You've got a house sitting in the middle of a field. This is your house. That house is your success, your dreams, your vision, whatever it is that you're trying to, that you define as success in life. Now, if you did not put up a fence around that house, it's unrealistic to expect that at some point in time, somebody else is going to come along and go, this is a great chunk of property, and I'm going to stake up some property right up next to the outside of your house because I want as much of that property as I can get. And hey, you haven't marked anything off, right? What do we do when we buy a house? What's one of the things that we include whenever we buy a house? We want that plot diagram. Somebody comes in and surveys and they tell us, these are the boundaries of your property. We don't do that in our own businesses. We don't do that when it comes to our own successes. Why not? Is that any less important than buying a house? I'd say it's more important in the picture of big life. So 4 key chapters represent the 4 posts that you need to set hard into the ground and fence in that house that represents your success. Chapter number 4 in the book talked about your vision, the law of navigation. Good leaders have to understand how to navigate, how to cast a vision. We call that a why. That's post number 1. That's at stake number 1 for your fence. Stake it in the ground. That's corner number 1. Corner number 2 is chapter 17. The law of prioritization. You got to understand what your priorities and goals are. You set that stake in hard. Know what it looks like to protect and achieve success. Stake number 3, non-negotiables, the law of sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice and what are you not willing to sacrifice? If you don't know that and you haven't identified that, written it down, put it in your heart, put it in your mind's eye, and set that post in hard, it's not going to hold up when the storm sets in. Those obstacles and those distractions and those naysayers and all those things start hitting up against the side of that fence, and it's just going to collapse in. So set that post in. The final post of your corners, post number 4, is the chapter we're going to talk about next week, the law of timing. You got to know, it's not about knowing what you need to do. It's not just about knowing what you need to do or how you need to do it. It's about knowing when to do it, right? Because, the law of priority also says this isn't a priority now, but next week it's going to be a priority, right? Our months look like that. We know that certain things can be held off until the end of the month when we're going to be in sprint mode. We know that naturally in this business. So anyway, if you've done the 4 posts now, that represents your fence, and that fence is critical. Any weak part of that fence represents a vulnerability in your business. It represents something that can impede your success. So set those posts in hard. Again, why are you doing this? Know that. Rehearse it. Tell yourself when you wake up every morning, this is why I do what I do, because I see this in my mind's eye. This is where I want to be. You know, I want to sit when I'm 60 or 70, 80 years old, sitting on the front porch of big property, looking out at the kids playing, enjoying, taking it all in, having lived a good life and made an influence, impact on multiple people along the way. You know, whatever that is, set it up so vividly that you can't not get excited when you think about it. Your why should elicit an emotional response from you when you say it to yourself. If you don't get teary-eyed, if you don't get excited, if you don't get emotional, your why will not stand the test of time. So if you're sitting here tonight and you're not excited when you think about your why, then you need to revisit your why. It's not about money. It's not about money. It's not about time. All those things are perks to achieving your why. It's not your why though. Okay. Once you understand that why, you can start putting the other posts in the ground, because once I understand my why, I can set the goals to get there, which establishes my priorities, which helps me define what I'm willing to pay to achieve those priorities and what I'm not willing to pay. And then finally, how do I set the ball in motion? When's the right time to pull the trigger on various things that I need to achieve to hit my goals? And so this represents how you protect success in anything as a leader, whether you protect your family, right? I lock my doors at night. Why do I do that? Because I want to protect my family. I take other measures as well. We all do things to protect to protect various things. You know, we shore up our bank accounts. We do this, we do that. We go to the grocery store and buy toilet paper before everybody makes a run on it. You name it, right? But we don't take the same. I have seen in the last few months, people take more emphasis on protecting their toilet paper stockade than they do on protecting their definition of success and what's going to give them success in life in the long game. That's crazy to me. When did toilet paper become more important than success in life? I don't know. Anyhow, I digress. So distractions, you talked about destination disease. If you have not visited each of these 4 posts and established that, you will end up with destination disease. Erin McIntyre was talking about this last week during some of her studies. There's this thing called cognitive distortions, the lies we tell ourselves, right? And usually that's prefaced by some type of negative statement like I can't, I won't, I'm not good at. I love that. Whenever I hear that, anybody who's coached me knows I'll squash it in a heartbeat. Don't lie to yourself. Those are lies you tell yourself to stay in your comfort zone. If you have not prepared by answering those things I just went through and establishing those posts to defend and protect your boundaries, your success, your dreams, you will fall victim of destination disease. You will become overwhelmed and you will become frustrated and people will impede, right? It's like them saying, oh, well, this post is kind of shaky. My neighbor's not paying attention. I'm just going to kind of lift their post up and move it a little bit closer to their house so I have more of their time, more of their resources, more of their energy. Y'all know who they are. You've had people on your team like this. You've had people in other places you've worked. I call them time leeches. They will leech your time from you. They will leech your resources from you. If you let them, they will literally pick up your boundary line and move it closer to your house just to take up more of that space from you. Don't let them do that. Set those posts hard. Know what they are. And finally, not every obstacle, right? We talk about obstacles. As you do your prioritization, remember, not every obstacle is worth or necessary for your time. Some obstacles are put in your path simply to be an obstacle. There's no growth by going through it. So guess what? Go around it. Don't spend time focusing on it. It's not a priority. So I had a lot to say on that subject tonight. Sorry, Taylor. Okay, Rochelle's handing me her book over here. So she has to be careful. She can't talk too much tonight. I told her.
Don't be sorry. Keep talking. You're doing good.
So, the heart of leadership is, she said in here, one of the things that really stuck out to her, and I do agree with this, and Taylor, you hit on this, is leaders are often asked to give up more than others will be. As you grow, so that is, I did write that down in my notes. Being a leader is not for the faint of heart. We say it all the time. Your team will demand more of you and ask more of you than you're able to give some days. That's called personal growth. We grow into it. We grow into the leader we need to be to lead the team that we are called to lead. And so, the heart of leadership is putting others ahead of yourself and asking yourself, how can I help them? Because again, you cannot help somebody else without helping yourself. It's impossible. You cannot pour value into somebody else without deriving some sense of value back to yourself, unless you're beating your head against a wall, and then maybe you're not spending the 80% on the 20% you're supposed to. But I think that, is that what you wanted me to say? Is that good? Okay. Michelle's over here beating me up.
I did want to piggyback off something you said, Matt. So going back to the heart of a leader and the spending 80% of your time with the top 20% of your people, it takes a good leader as well to recognize when you need to pick up your resources, let someone sit, and move on to the next person. And that's probably the most challenging thing to do, just as any good leader, you know, because you don't want to leave your people behind, you know, you want them all to come with you. But it does take a good leader to say, you know what, you're not ready for this, or, you know, this isn't important to you, or you're not conveying that this is important to you right now. So that's okay. Come back to me when it is, you know, and that is also a good leader. And it goes back to protecting your boundaries and saying, yes, those fence posts, they need to stay there.
That's right. That's awesome. You know, and so real quick, because everybody here is a leader. Everybody here is a leader. Okay. Don't lie to yourself. I've had to tell more people and show more people that they were leading. You're always leading somebody. You're leading your children. You're leading your small group. You're leading your Plexus team. You're always leading somebody. All right. Otherwise, you're just taking a walk. Right. That's what John Maxwell says. If you think you're a leader and you look around and there's nobody following, you're just taking a walk. So we don't have anybody taking a walk here. We're all leaders. So, you know, you need to define what a good leader is. A good leader, you know, we talk about integrity. A good leader has the integrity to make the hard call. And you're absolutely right, Taylor. Far too often, leaders will continue to pour into somebody. It's like pouring into a cup and they've drilled a hole through the bottom of it. And you're just pouring in and pouring in and pouring in. It's just running right out the bottom. That's to nobody's avail. And, you know, you can't keep doing that. And so a good leader is the one that's willing to be the honest broker. I use that term all the time. I'm going to be the honest broker with you. Right now, you're telling me this is where you want to go. And you've created a vision of what your life should look like and could look like if you're willing to make the sacrifices. But I don't see that right now you want to make the sacrifices that are needed to be made to get there. So here's what I want to do for you. I want to let you know that I'm not leaving you as a leader. But what I'm doing is I'm not going to take away from the other people that do need me to be there and show up for them right now, right here, because they're going and they need me. And if you're willing to do that, then by all means, I'm going to keep pouring in. Let's plug the hole in the bottom of the cup and I'm going to start pouring. But if you're just going to self-sabotage, and that's what it's called, if you're just going to self-sabotage your own vision, your own dream for your life, you know, all I can do is continue to show you that there's a better way. But ultimately, you got to be willing to do it. Far too many leaders will sit there and run headlong into a brick wall over and over and over again. You know, definition of insanity, right? Why isn't this person getting it? It's because you're trying to force something on them that they're not willing to internalize and make their own. It's your dream for them at that point. It's not their dream. So that's a great point.
You have to watch their feet and not their mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing with sacrifice too is, you guys, like, I'm not going to do too much talking like Matt said because my voice is like always worse at night. But if you look at the amount of sacrifice, I'm just going to take myself for an example, okay? And you can ask any other sapphire on this call with us. There is a tremendous amount of sacrifice. I do not say that to scare people away, okay? But it is true. Like, if you want to get to the top, if that is your goal, it's not everybody's goal. To be honest, it wasn't my goal in the beginning. Like, I was not sitting here like, hey, I'm going to be a diamond, you know? But if it is your goal that you want to get to the top and you want to be a diamond or a double diamond or whatever it is your goal is, it will take sacrifice. And it's trading something for something. So while you may at times feel like, oh my gosh, I just really want to sit on the couch and watch TV, you know, or whatever, and you feel like you're sacrificing your family time, just know that we just went on vacation for 2 weeks and we're able to stay at a really nice hotel house right on the beach, not a hotel, a house right on the beach. And my family benefited from that with me, but there was sacrifice. I mean, look at Matt and all the sacrificing that he did in the Army for 20 stinking years, you know, and now he's home and we don't have to worry about deployments and all of that. And he can work from home now. He did his time. And now we have that blessing that came from the sacrifice. He talks about it on page 222. The people that are going to school, look at you PTs on here. How long did you go to school for? How much money did you pay to go to school? I mean, any of you guys that went to college, right? Like, it takes sacrifice. It takes studying, and all of the studying and writing papers. Oh my gosh, the papers. Can't deal with the papers. I'm so glad I'm done with that part of my life. But athletes, they're in the gym over and over. Dancers, my daughters are all dancers. My oldest is in every genre. It takes a tremendous amount of sacrifice and time on the parents' part for driving them there, and on their part for doing all of the things. You're not going to have anything without sacrifice.
Absolutely.
Parents, having children, all I do is, listen, we were just talking about this the other day. I feel like I don't even do anything for myself. I can't even take a shower by myself. I can't go to the bathroom by myself. Everything that I do is literally for everybody else. Like, even eating is for Ronan. Like, I don't do anything for myself over here, you know? Like, everything is a sacrifice, and it's okay, because that is just how it is right now. You know, it's a season with him being little, or, you know, whatever, but it's all a sacrifice. So you have to ask yourself, are you willing? I say it all the time. It's not about if you can, it's a matter of if you're willing. Are you willing to sacrifice what it needs? It's like Matt was saying, you know, you can only you can answer what you're willing to sacrifice. So for me, I was not willing to sacrifice everything and fly to Diamond in 14 months like Fallon. Like, that is craziness. Like, I just did not want, I don't want to do that. I have 8 kids now, but at the time I had 6. And so, but my life is different from hers. She was a single mom at the time, and she was like, I've got to get to the top. I've got to do this. And her why was huge, and that's why she did what she did. And that's awesome, and that's her story. And I love that she has that story for us to share about. But for me, that was not my story. I'm not willing to sacrifice all of my family time just to what? Be at the top. Like, I'm very thankful for where we're at. I'm very thankful for our family time. I'm very thankful for my Sapphire pay. Very thankful for all my friendships, all those things, right? So you do have to look for yourself. What are you willing to sacrifice? But just know that if you do have goals to go and be wherever it is that you want to be, it is going to take time. It's going to take time for you to be on these calls. It's going to take time for you to watch videos. It's going to take time for you to reach out to people, to grow yourself, all the things. And it's not hard, you guys. If this was a college class, you know, it'd be like a super easy one, but it definitely does take sacrifice.
Yep. You're all sacrificing tonight by being here. That's the easy way to look at it, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Taylor, I'm gonna turn it back over to you so we can stop the recording and answer any questions that need to be answered.
Sorry, we didn't stop the recording.
We didn't. I just realized it. Yeah.
I will stop the recording and then start it again. Sound good?